time to call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Bucyrus City School District Board of Education to order. Roll call, please.
Dr. Johnson? Here. Mr. Schieffer? Here. Mrs. Stone?
Here.
Mr. Stone? Mr. Murray?
Would you all please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started this evening, I'd kind of like us all to just take a moment and kind of reflect and have a moment of silence for the people in Oklahoma. I think that is probably a parent, a community, a school district's nightmare to have something like that happen. So if we could just take a moment of silence and thank you. Makes me want to cry. Just awful. Okay, we'll go ahead and go to commendations. Kevin, that's a good place to start, I guess.
News.
Yes.
We're very fortunate tonight to have a large group of individuals that have donated their time at the elementary school, volunteering their efforts throughout the school year. Without their help and support, it would not be possible. And before we recognize those students and adults that have volunteered this year, we do have one accommodation that we'd like to present from last board meetings, and that's Hayden Hirschler. Hayden and his family are here tonight, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Henderson. He had a little conflict with the schedule during last month's meeting, and maybe you can speak a little bit about his experiences out in California. So, Mr. Henderson.
Hayden, if you'd come up here and join me. I'm proud for this opportunity to introduce Hayden Hirschler. He was our Franklin B. Walter Scholarship Award winner from Bucyrus High School, and that is a scholarship program that of all the schools that are served by the Mid-Ohio Educational Service Center consortium of schools, we send a student representative who we feel embodies the best and highest standards of character, academic performance, as well as involvement in the school and in the community. And Hayden was a worthy nominee and was one of the finalists for that scholarship, and was a very outstanding representative of our school district in that capacity. We had the event back in March. One of his many talents kept him from being able to be at last month's board meeting. He was in California, Anaheim, to be exact, to participate in DECA, the DECA National Competition, where he presented. What was your topic?
We rebranded a company.
You created a company, and
yeah, we actually took the Council on Aging and kind of rebranded it to make it more successful.
Okay, and you presented that on a national stage. He's qualified. You have to qualify at the district level, then the state level. And the students, one of our students, he was one of the students that also qualified and represented Bucyrus in Anaheim, California, at this DECA national competition. So that's a very valid and worthwhile reason for missing board meeting to receive the commendation for the Franklin B. Walter Award. And I wanted to take this opportunity to congratulate and recognize him for not only his efforts at DECA, but for being the Bucyrus High School Franklin B. Walter nominee. So join me in congratulating.
I was fortunate enough to Sunday attend a ceremony at the Crawford College Connections awards program where Hayden was given some cold hard cash for his hard work. And I know his parents absolutely appreciated that. So he's had a busy week, and it caps off with graduation on Sunday. So congratulations on the 12 years of hard work and your parents have absolutely got to be ecstatic for the things that you've accomplished this year and throughout your education career.
Thank you.
And before you get released tonight, after we do the next round of volunteers, make sure that you stop out in the front of the school. Mr. Stone will take a picture of you so that we can get that up on our website. Okay. Okay, at this time I'll turn it over to Mr. Roll to acknowledge the volunteers at the elementary school this year.
Thank you. Before I introduce Kimberly Light, who is our guidance counselor and our coordinator, one thing that I just happened to look through as I was reading the names and preparing to make sure I pronounced it appropriately, the number of folks who are near and dear to me in here when we talk about the value of our community. My Little League coach is here, a Sunday school teacher is here, former students are here, folks that I've known in various capacities, so we're very appreciative of all that you give back to our community. So with this, I'd like to introduce Kimberly Light, who is our, I need to also recognize folks from General Electric, the place where my father worked and retired from. So again, thank you all very much. But Ms. Light?
Yeah, we've got some special people here. We just have the nicest, most dedicated, faithful volunteers, and especially some of our Red Hat ladies. You ladies come whether it's ice, windy. I keep saying, you shouldn't be out in this. Oh, we're fine, we're fine. So we appreciate all your help, everybody, over the years. We've had, we've got kids, besides these folks that Mr. Roll's going to announce. We were talking today, it's so hard when you do something like this not to leave people out. There's always, you just keep thinking of all these other things people have done. In addition to these folks, we've had Red Cross organization help in the fall. The Girl Scouts have come and done programs for us in the fall. JA is very active in our school. Some of those people are from GE that are in here. But also, I was thinking like Deb Dostal and her husband come work with us through the JA. There's volunteers who work with the BEST program, our after-school program. I want to mention the churches. We are so lucky to be surrounded by. It was the Grace Church there, that building that's gone in with Epworth to be the Bucyrus United Methodist. Those folks have been wonderful to us. Put on a carnival in the fall, give us school supplies, always food when we do parent conferences. They're always doing something very special, very giving. The Park District, they come, volunteer. I've had 34 fifth grade, we have a door greeter program that I do, and we're honoring them tomorrow with a pizza lunch. Thank you, Lori, for helping with that. 34 fifth graders that open the door for our staff, our kids, every morning. They stand out there and say good morning, and I think if Walmart does it, there must be something to it. So we have a door greeter program, and I appreciate those kids helping. Mr. Adam Stone's not here this evening, but he's done so much as far as coming and helping us with the Boys Council, that's 4th and 5th grade boys, and sponsoring some assemblies. And Tina Herman, I want to thank her too. She does a great job with helping with all the BCI fingerprinting that has to be done too with all the volunteers. So I've got a couple of quotes here I just have to read. Winston Churchill said, "We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give." Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, "We cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future." And Margaret Mead said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." And I just have one funny little, this is kind of dated, back when a lot of the women were home, but it reminds me of some of our volunteers. It's called Just a Housewife. "Hello, Mrs. Jones. I've just called to say, I'm sorry I cried when you phoned today. No, I didn't get angry when your call came at 4, just as 8 Cub Scouts burst through the door. It's just that I had a really full day. I had baked pies for the PTA. The laundry, the shopping to scrubbing the floor were chores I had finished not too long before. I hemmed up a dress, which my daughter needs Sunday, and prepared for a meeting with 4-H'ers on Monday. No, the reason I cried and gave that great yelp was not because you phoned just to ask for my help. The comment that threw me, nearly drove me berserk, was, "I'm sure you have time because you don't work." I'm sure all you volunteers have heard that many times, right? But thank you a lot for everything. And I just have a thank you card if you
Okay.
get those.
Usually what we do is we have the folks come up and we make a line, but we may want to snake by. What do you think? Okay, I tell you what, how about if we start with the folks down here and then we'll bring you around and put you right along here, because then we're going to let you go through because these folks need to shake your hand. Thank you. Diane Hollefels. Marianne Appleby. And just so you folks know, she did reference the determination and the dedication of our Red Hat ladies. Do know, thank you very much, ma'am. Do know that when some of them aren't able to be here to volunteer, they arrange for their own substitutes to come in. Lisa Blizzard. Maxine Brown. Helen Carter. Jen Colin. Shelley Darnell. Lucy Dix. Jenny Gerger. Brian Grabenbauer. George Grimace. Laura Hill. Heather Kaiser. Chuck Kisling. Becky Kreiner. Nina Lightsey. Just did over there instead of making me do it. Davy Lowe. Wow.
I'll take that for her.
Okay. Shy Likens. Christy McBride. Janine McLeese. Peter Maynard. Susan Maynard. Dee Miley. Joanne Miller. Blaney Molikoff. Dan Monin. Pearl Murphy. Matt Novak. Anthony Powers. Albert Prime. Heather Ricker. Tanya Rister. Jessica Scott. Melanie Taylor. George Thornton. Dorothy Truman. Dorothy Watts. Denise Whitmire. Bill Williams.
Thanks, Bill.
And Jill Zeiss. And this is a portion of all of our volunteers for whom we are very thankful, so we can give them a round of applause. And we'll ask you to lead the line down here, and we'll come right. Where do you want to go around? I'll tell you what, go right around behind, and we'll let you shake all these folks again. There we go.
It's easier to do this than crawl. Try to make it hard on
That's
you.
because we're speaking about the idea now that we're speaking through the idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jay, thank you. Thank you.
Are you coming to the tour tour? Yeah, good to see you there. Okay. Yeah, I'm bringing my son to school.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, we're still open.
No, we're still open. We're still open till next Wednesday. You come anytime to see those kids.
Oh, yeah.
They've
I'm
served.
in my little room upstairs. I don't see anything else. So we got the magic key. Invisible than to be present. Yes. Right, so it's those ones. So, the radar on the radar. Connect you better than there's probably their problem. Well, remember that connection.
Once again, I'd like to express my appreciation for everything that you guys have done for our young students at the elementary school. And obviously, it does take a village. So, appreciate it. You're more than welcome to stick around for the rest of the meeting, or if you'd like to be excused, now is the time. And we'd ask everybody, please stop in the front part of the office there so we can get a group photo with those that were recognized tonight. Thank you for coming. Okay, Paul.
You're back here.
No matter clothing, you can't leave.
Hey, that's good. You know all the help they can get.
Plug it in.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Terry.
You got here. Come on, get a front row seat, Ross. Come on now, get front and center.
Hey, you hired Facebook today.
We are hiring a Facebook coach.
That's wrong here.
Okay.
Front row center.
Front row center.
All right. We have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of April 25th and the special meeting of May 14th, 2013. Don't you two fight.
So moved, Madam President.
treasurer's financial report dated April 30th, 2013.
So moved. I can support.
All right, Mr. Cook. All right, turn the floor over to you.
Thanks. Got a couple of things I want to do tonight. Provide you with a brief update of a few items that have taken place over the last month. And then I would like to run through a PowerPoint presentation, highlights of the financial forecast that we're going to see later on this evening. So first up, want to discuss the bond refunding project that Mr. Kimmel and I undertook probably 2 months ago, maybe close to 3. I've been working on it for a while. We were able to close on that May 2nd. We shortened the length of our outstanding debt by 2 years, and the total savings of this effort to the taxpayers, not to the district ourselves, was $1,178,284.16. So substantially over what we had originally estimated, which is a positive result from the efforts put in. Maintained our credit rating. We were initially concerned that due to the economic conditions in the area, we may see a downgrade, but put together a pretty solid presentation for Moody's, and obviously the fruits of that labor were substantial savings to taxpayers of the district. Second project that we are presently still working on is our solar project panels, if you will. Progressing along, we have the contract to our attorneys. We had a conference call with them last Thursday. Put in place some protections that we'd like to see, some guarantees, just to make sure that we don't pay any more per kilowatt hour than what we would with the AEP. Some concerns with making sure if we need access to the roof. They're talking 4,000 solar panels on the high school and a portion of the annex, so there's a substantial number of panels. We want to make sure that we're available. Jake needs to get up there to do something. We have access to shift and maneuver with that. Not a lot of major concerns. It is a 25-year project. The attorney didn't necessarily like the length of that, but with the capital outlay it would take for us to do that on our own and not have any obligation, I would need to bring it to you. It's about a $10 million project in scope, so it's quite substantial. So we'll keep you apprised as we move through that in council at this point. On to the 5-year forecast. We update this twice a year, May and October, for approval and submission to the state. And this is, I guess, from our office on the fiscal end, it's a living document, but yet it's very important to the decisions that you make as board members. Spent a substantial amount of time updating this, working with Mr. Kimmel to make sure staffing levels were correct. I feel pretty comfortable with the numbers that we have here. I've not forecasted in any of the Governor and Kasich proposed budget increases or decreases, depending on how that shakes out. I'm just not confident and comfortable enough with where we're going to land to put that into this one yet. I would highlight on the fiscal forecast itself, line 6.010, and that continues on page 1 there. It shows our trend of deficit spending continuing. I'm estimating this fiscal year, 2013, we will spend $510,355 more than we bring in. Next fiscal year, we decrease a little bit. I've built in some monies for curriculum this year. $480,995 more than we bring in. And then in 2015, $1,175,675 continues to show a $1.7 million deficit in fiscal year 2016, growing to $2.4 million in fiscal year 2017. I will highlight that our cash balance on June 30th is in the red in fiscal year 2017 based on this forecast. Overall, the trend of deficit spending is worrisome. However, I've talked to numerous treasurers that have what we're seeing in 2017 creeping up next year. So although I don't think we want to rest on our laurels with expense management, revenue enhancement, but we have some time to make some corrections and some tweaks. And I'll talk a little bit about some of those here in a moment. Any questions on that? Pretty self-explanatory. See the trend. take a couple minutes to run through, I guess what I would consider to be the highlights. Most of this is contained, well, in fact, all of the charts are contained and taken from your notes, but I thought I'd provide you some visual highlights as well. You can kind of see here what the results, starting in fiscal year 2010, actuals through our estimates of 2017. You can kind of see how the results of the state cuts in our tangible personal property and the state fiscal stability funds and ed job funds, how they can be seen in fiscal year 11 through 13 as they've been cut. This, I guess I'll call it blue line here, is our revenue, which is forecasted to stay relatively flat at this point in time, barring any positive changes out of Columbus. The expenditure line, as you can see, we crossed back here fiscal year 2010, began our deficit spending, continues to outpace and exceed our revenues. So this trend is worrisome because we never really seem to fall back below on the expenditure side what our revenue is. That's an area that I know Mr. Kimmel and I are diligently working on, actively managing, but it's very difficult to close this gap the further out we get. The balance to just continue to grow. Again, we started spending more than we were bringing in fiscal year 2011. Cash balance. This was one of the issues that Moody's raised. They wondered if we had an actual cash balance policy, if you will, to end with each fiscal year, where there was kind of a red line. Spent a lot of time talking to different treasurers. What are they comfortable with? 30-day cash balance seems to be responsible, if you will. Well above that threshold until we get out into the 2016-2017 outlook. And again, it's very difficult to forecast out with precision because we don't necessarily know what the state's going to do 2 years from now. I'm still not certain what they're going to do for us in July yet. So you can see the difficulty we're working with. Try to normalize the trends and project out as best we can so that when we make decisions in here, we understand what the implications are long term with those. Obviously, we're not legally allowed to end with anything less than zero cash in the bank on June 30th. So as we get out here, we have some work we need to do to kind of mitigate that risk on the financial side. I would consider this to be heavily dependent on the state of Ohio for our revenues. This gives you kind of a good picture of where they're coming from. Obviously, the worrisome trend here would be things that come out of Columbus, because 67% of our revenue is dependent on the actions that the state legislature takes. So again, Governor Kasich's budget could be very positive for us, it could be very negative for Wash, but either way, we're going to be very heavily dependent on what they do. I think given some of the trends and the numbers that I discussed in the notes, it's going to be very difficult to move the needle on the local sources. I think we're battling a number of issues there with poverty in the local community. It's difficult for folks to make ends meet. And obviously, there's only two things we can do to get 2016, 2017 out. We can decrease our expenditures or increase our revenue. So I think we're going to have to try to find a balance or a good mix of those. So we can kick that can down the road, if you will. Challenges to operating revenue. Tangible personal property was eliminated quicker than it was supposedly projected. It was actually cut fiscal year 2012. I believe I have the number in here. It was $264,000. The impact was to that each fiscal year. Revenues are decreasing as stimulus funds have been cut. 67% of our revenue is from the state. Obviously, changes in the state funding formula or the funding amounts are going to directly affect our bottom line. So again, we're heavily dependent on what comes out of Columbus. Casino revenue, I think there was this outlook that this was going to be a savior or a big boom for districts around the state. It's not panning out to be so. It's modeled fiscal year 13 through 17, but at lower amounts than originally estimated by the Department of Taxation. I've seen revenue estimates running 30% less as of a month ago. They're saying that the racinos that have opened are actually impacting the casinos quite heavily, and we don't see those dollars coming in. So that's a big issue there. We're going to be faced with a new biennium budget, fiscal year 14 and 15. Hopefully that continues to shake out and solidify here, and again in fiscal year 16 and 17. I have no idea what we're going to shake out as state funding-wise for fiscal year 14 until after the final deadline, so I've chosen not to put any estimates in there. I don't want to make it better than it could possibly be. This will be a topic of discussion as we move further out in the forecast. Current operating levels would require adjustments. I know we've made those already. Again, we began deficit spending in fiscal year 2011. It's going to result in a negative ending cash balance in fiscal year 2017. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, we've got to increase revenue or reduce expenditures. Reductions are going to be needed if significant state funding increases are not received in the next two biennial budgets. We can make smaller reductions now. It's easier, it's less painful versus massive changes or a shock to the system all at once. It's just easier. It stabilizes things. It's painful, but again, we've only got a couple of options to work with. Again, the phase out of the tangible personal property is a huge contributor to the decline in state revenues. It's a loss of $264,000 a year. So you can see how that impacts the bottom line. We're talking a deficit of about $500,000 this year.
And I think that at one point in time, that TPP generated about $1.2 million in our district.
It could have. I didn't go back and look.
That number just the phase out of the
That's
phase
the
out.
phase out of the phase out, correct. And the original idea behind this was the state of Ohio had what at the time appeared to be a great idea on paper. I think everybody was initially skeptic, was the CAT tax, commercial activity tax. And it has just not panned out to be anywhere near the financial stability that this was for us. So one good thing was with the continuing levy in place, we continue to get our TPP. We had inflation, we won't get the reimbursement. That's gone. It's phased out. Estimated general fund expenditures in fiscal year 2013, actually pretty good on this. This was kind of nice to see. Wages and benefits are at 72%, which is not out of line. I think, again, this can be attributed to the tough decisions we've had to make reducing staff over the last couple of years. A lot of the folks I talk to, a lot of the seminars I attend, kind of redline when you get to 85%. It's very, very difficult to correct at that point in time. So we have some flexibility here to work with. It's not going to come as a shock. It's going to seem odd when I say this. Purchase services are our second largest cost, which is not common. Most of that can be attributed to open enrollment out in community schools. And we've had numerous discussions on those, and we've begun to put some plans in place to try to correct that. But that is a huge, huge expense for us outside of salaries, and we're in the people business.
Ryan, there was some talk about businesses at least seeing some savings from workers' comp insurance. Will we realize any benefit from those savings? Or?
I don't know. I have not seen anything that indicates we will. I don't think the group that we're in right now, I've not gotten any information from them indicating that. There's a big, I want to say $1.1 billion that they're looking to release. I've not seen how that's going to be divided up. They've come out with a few districts that will benefit. We're a direct payer on that. So at this point in time, I've not seen anything that indicates we will. It'd be great if we did, but I've not gotten any notice. I don't know if you've seen anything.
The paper showed a small benefit to us, but not
I haven't gotten anything.
and I haven't gotten anything other than what I read in the paper.
Because 1.1 billion, that's almost real money.
It's a lot of money. It's a huge amount of money. I think the estimate in the paper was $27,000, I want to say. Very minimal. I've not seen anything official from the Bureau yet, though. I don't have anything in there. General fund expenditures by object code. Fiscal year 10 through 17, revenue is obviously flat, but costs continue to rise. Kind of key in here on the wages and benefits being the biggest line. You can see steady upward progression. Again, our revenue line is flat to down. A lot of it's going to hinge on valuations again when we come back for the second couple of years. Revenue's flat, the costs continue to rise. Obviously not sustainable in the long run. So again, we need to work on that. Summary of where we're at right now. Begin using our reserves in fiscal year 2011. Cuts in state funding are a significant contributor to our challenges. It's not that we're necessarily doing anything wrong here. Obviously, we have to make decisions in the best interest of the students. We're also heavily dependent on decisions coming out of Columbus to fund us for those decisions we make. Even with our 2011 levy renewed as a continuing levy, we're still deficit spending. needs to be remedied for long-term sustainability. I guess the main action at this point, expenses need to be closely monitored and reduced. We continue to do that. I know we're trying to wring every dollar out that we can. It's difficult because, again, the largest expense we have is people. Watching closely the new state budget and funding for fiscal year 14, and unfortunately, casino revenue does not appear that it's going to save us at this point in time.
So you guys didn't invest in any Powerball tickets either?
I did buy one. Unfortunately, it just didn't pan out. Bad investment for me, good investment for the state, I guess. Questions?
I appreciate seeing the five-year forecast where we're at right now. I think just as a group, I think that before working with our superintendent, the former treasurers, and now you, Ryan, I think we have done about as good a job as we can.
Pretty well.
And there's not a whole lot of room for cutting.
We were sitting at about 85, 90% on that salary benefit line. We probably have a little bit of meat to trim off the bone, but 72% is pretty respectable and pretty good. So, just managing cash flow versus expenditures at this point.
How long since you had a levy for?
1989, or 98, 89.
89. Yeah. It's
1980.
been a while. It's been a while.
And I think we continue to be good stewards of the district's money.
That's the key.
Especially with your working with Kevin's on the bond refinance.
We're trying to do all the right things.
So,
Appreciate it. That's it. Thank you.
Any projection about what the solar project is back there? We had savings?
Yeah, the projected savings is going to be about 30%. What we're looking at right now with, there's two pieces of electricity. You've got the generation and the, I'll call it the transportation, your transmission down the lines. I locked this in, there was some savings a couple board meetings ago on the generation piece of that, and I believe we're right between 5 and 6 cents a kilowatt hour. And the transmission portion of that comes in about another nickel to 6 cents. So we're anywhere from 11 to 12 cents a kilowatt hour in total. The solar project, we're going to be able to lock in at 7 cents a kilowatt hour. So we're going to save about a third on that. The piece that we kind of questioned, and I still think at this point calculating out what our rate increases have been with AEP, they've got a 4% cost escalator on that 7%. There wasn't any guarantee that if those ever crossed, AEP suddenly became cheaper, that we could opt out. And I wanted to make sure that we have that in there because I don't want to pay more 15, 20 years from now for solar than what AEP could be. Just technology changes rapidly. Who knows how efficient utilities will become. I'm planning for about a third, 30% reduction based on what we're seeing. Translates into, I'm going to say between $3,000 and $4,000 a month based on the bills I've seen thus far. So $35,000, $36,000 a year approximately with no money spent except a few dollars on legal fees. So the return's pretty good on that.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate you and Kevin putting that together and getting it to us. The only bad thing about it is it can change in a heartbeat, so.
It'll be different in October.
I'm sure it will. I'm sitting here listening, I know. I'm thinking casinos aren't gonna save us. The lottery didn't save
trying to
us.
do everything
You know,
I can.
I knew you were, Kevin, I
Okay,
knew you
I
were
know.
working so hard to make sure those casinos saved us. But here, it's just the same old story. And we're waiting on one, but it's just frustrating. Okay, roll call, please. Yes, thank you.
Dr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Sheever?
yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes. And do we have a motion to approve the addendum to the agenda this evening?
So moved.
Support.
Is there anything you wanted to point out to this, with this addendum?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. In the addendum, if you didn't get it, there should be copies around. There had been some recent changes with regards to the personnel certified area. We had a late supplemental that was taken off, and then a late one added. Mr. Sean Mosley, our current math teacher, has accepted the head baseball position. So we're very fortunate with that. He's been in our district 15 years, has 8 years of baseball experience, and since in my time being here, he'll be the 3rd head baseball coach, which is, you know, the most consistent program we've had in all of our athletics next to track. So we're fortunate that Mr. Mosley stepped up and has taken over that program that Mr. Smith, Mr. Dennison, Mr. Smith, and Mr. Fisher have built out over the last 20 years. So that is on the addendum. And then there was part of the business section. We have bid openings today for renovations to the athletic complex. And you'll see on there a recommendation for Ryan to enter into contracts for the asphalt, fencing, and potential bleacher replacement. The bids with fencing and asphalt came in under the estimate, which was good. The bleacher replacement is still kind of up in the air right now, and so we'd like to do a little bit more. We had 2 bids come in, but we're unfamiliar with the vendor, and we want to make sure that we check out references and see the product that they've done at the other areas. And just a reminder of the bleacher problem that we have is the press box on the visitor side is sitting on solid foundation, with the rest of the bleachers were sitting on asphalt. And over time, we've had
Pulling away.
yeah, it's been pulling away, and so there's it's being close to being deemed by the safety folks that check it out every year not being safe. So we've got to make a change there. So with the permanent improvement monies that we've had designated from the interest income off the project, it's not a general fund expenditure, but we're looking to upgrade and make those needed improvements. So that's the basically the gist of the addendum.
Thank you.
Yep.
Roll call, please.
Dr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, let's go ahead and go to committee reports. Mr. Shepherd, athletics.
Well, thank you. Well, our special board meeting we had just last week, we hired a new head basketball coach, Mr. Tony Rose, which was introduced to those who attended, and it was a nice piece in the paper. I think we're very fortunate to have Tony come to our district. And we know that he wasn't married to a former BHS graduate. We wouldn't be having him come here. So it does pay to have people in places. So that's looking forward to him moving his family to the Bucyrus community. And also, as Mr. Kimball said, we're going to be considering tonight Mr. Mosley as our head baseball coach, and it's nice to see Sean step up and step into that role. I think he's done great with the basketball program over there, so I think he'll do a great job with the baseball program. The Athletic Council had a meeting last evening, and at that time we reviewed the athletic budget for the past year, and I want to compliment our athletic director, Tom Jeffrey. Our budget, everything was kept under budget for the year, so I want to thank Tom for the hard work he's done and working with the coach and the coaches as well. Some of the old business, as Mr. Kimball talked about this evening already, the athletic complex renovations are going to be going forward, starting coming up here in June, and as you know, we have some decisions to make in that regard, which Mr. Kimball advised us of in the addendum. So that's a good thing. There's some very much needed renovations that are for the athletic complex, and it's also I think we're looking at this in a two-phase program. The first phase is what we're proceeding with, as Kevin talked about, and the second phase will be brought to the board in the future. But it's also nice to have some PI money to be able to make those renovations. We got quite a valuable asset out there, and it's a good thing that we have the money, we can keep going with that. Drug testing was talked about, and there'll be some things that will be coming to the board's attention, I believe, probably before the next school year. Some things that are going to be were discussed. So. Also, our budget for the upcoming year, 2013-14, was presented, and that was discussed a little bit, and that will be brought to the board's attention for approval coming up probably either in June or July. And also the drive one for our school, that was, I just want to thank those parents and staff members who came out and supported that. I think we had close to 100 that took part in that to raise funds, and through the cooperation with Donnelly Ford, and I think we raised somewhere close to final figures are in the summer around $2,000, I believe, for the athletic department. So that's a good thing. A few upcoming events. The tennis awards are right now, I believe. And the girls also are participating tonight in district track meet at Fostoria. The boys have their district track at Fostoria tomorrow, as well as girls softball team will be playing Edison at Clyde tomorrow at 5 o'clock. And next week we will have baseball award, track awards, and for those who qualify from the district from track, we'll be going on to regional, as well as softball, hopefully. They'll be going on to regionals too. And our next athletic council meeting will be not until September, unless we need to hold one. So that concludes my rather short report.
Thank you, Doug. It's a busy time of the year.
Yeah,
Gee whiz.
it's almost the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Pioneer met last night, and what was I going to tell you? Isn't that awful? Blank, I know what it was. They did inform us that as of now there are, I think, like 636 juniors. That is the biggest enrollment that they have ever had at Pioneer in the junior class, and they're very, very happy about that. They're not sure what they're doing right, but they know they're doing something right. So that's pretty awesome for them. And everything else is just, you know, end of the year stuff, kind of like what we're doing. So and that's the end of my report. Dr. Johnson, student achievement.
Well, several Sunday afternoons ago, I had the opportunity and the pleasure to attend the academic awards banquet, and that's always such a nice ceremony banquet. It's a banquet that we actually have food at, you know. And so often we have athletic banquets anymore. Where's the banquet? But anyway, and the food was good, but the best part, of course, is recognizing the students for their academic achievements, and especially the seniors who have staff members talk about them. Is a really, really nice thing. And the academic boosters do such a terrific job with it. It's really a really nice affair. And then Thursday night, the reason we're meeting tonight, right, is the senior awards are Thursday night at the high school. And again, that's just a really neat occasion to see what our seniors have accomplished, and kind of gives you a hint of, you know, where they're headed and the good things that they've got going for them. So that's always a neat thing. I don't know, baccalaureate in conjunction with that afterwards, typically. So if you're not doing anything, or if you want to cancel something and come out and see a nice event with wonderful kids and their parents, come out to the high school Thursday night. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and go to superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Stone, members of the board. I'm going to ask Mr. Henderson to speak a little bit about the recent OGT results that came into the district.
Thank you, Mr. Kimmel, members of the board. I'm just talking about early last week we received preliminary numbers from the spring sophomore OGT testing regarding in the 5 content areas: reading, writing, math, social studies, and science. And preliminary numbers indicate that, and again, there's going to be some adjustments that we have to make in different things that we do behind the scenes in terms of reporting our student population and attendance and how that all impacts us. But we had, in writing, keep in mind 75% is the required passage rate to meet these various indicators. In writing, we had 74.5% of our students pass. In reading, 84.3% of our students pass. In math, 75.4%. In social studies, 70.5%. In science, 63.7%. And we will look at those numbers compared, looking at this cohort group over the time that they entered the secondary building in seventh graders back in the 2009-2010 school years. They took the reading and math test that year. These students had a 76.8% passage rate in reading compared to 84.3%. This year, as 8th graders, they had an 80.7% passage rate in reading, again, compared to the 84.3%. So these students have demonstrated growth each year in the reading content area. In math, as 7th graders, they had a 49.1% passage rate in math. As 8th graders, they had 63.3% passage rate in math. And in this year, 75.4% passage rate in math for this cohort group, which kind of paints the picture that these teachers are doing outstanding work and helping these kids grow. When you see that movement from 49% in 7th graders to where they are now as sophomores, there's some good work going on in the secondary building, attributed to the how we work collectively as an administrative team with our teachers. So so far the preliminary results aren't they're not where we want them to be, but this cohort group has demonstrated growth over time here in the district. And so again, we'll have more official numbers later in the summer, and then the actual report card relating to the entire picture of the district comes out in August. And we'll get our OAA numbers. Help me, Donna. We'll get our OAA numbers in June 15th, and we'll compare that to graduation rate, attendance rate, and how our middle school students do. And then we'll have a better idea of the larger picture of the secondary, how the secondary did as a building this year.
That concludes my report. Thanks, Mr. Anderson.
That's it. Wow, you got out of that one, didn't you?
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Do we have anybody that want to address the board? Okay. Okay, we will go to our personnel certified staff items, but I would ask that under that, we table item E, since we need more people here. Since we have a skeleton crew this evening. Okay? All right. And Mr. Kimball.
President, still members of the board, it's my recommendation to approve items A through H with the exception of E, and that would also include the item D, replacement from the addendum, under the personnel certified staff section of the agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to accept the personnel certified staff items?
So moved.
Support.
Any questions or comments for Captain? Roll call, please.
Dr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Schieffer?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes. We will go to our personnel classified staff items.
President, still members of the board, it's my recommendation to approve items A through D with, that would also include the replacement of item C from the addendum under the personnel classified staff section of the agenda.
Did you replace or add?
C is a replacement.
I think you just want to add one on there, don't you?
Oh, that's correct, yes. Just add item C from the addendum. Thank you.
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Roll call, please.
Mr. Sheever?
Yes.
Dr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes. And we'll go to the business items.
President Snow, members of the board, it's my recommendation that you approve items A through K, of which items, corrected item letters J and K from the addendum, not H and I, but items A through K under the business section of the agenda.
Okay, do we have a motion to accept the business items?
So moved.
Support.
Any questions, comments? Oh, sure. Mhm.
I spoke with Mr. Kimmel earlier. I just want to highlight, you're approving me to enter into the contracts for the athletic facility renovation. Just want to give you kind of the brief numbers on that. That way, but when you see these come through down the road, I'm kind of making sure everybody's on the same page. Permanent Improvement Fund has a present balance of $502,841. Estimates that we opened today for the athletic complex, and this figure includes the bleachers. We do have to do some investigation on that to make sure we're comfortable with the company, but those are $328,394. In addition to that, these are just the three major items coming out of the PI fund. We're going to have a small bill, I guess it's not really small, $15,000 for some electrical work to rerun some speakers and items of that nature, and we're going to do that in conjunction with the electrical contractors for the poles when we install the new lights. We also met Monday, met with Mr. Whitmire this afternoon, and we're looking at some improvements to the high school annex building for our educational opportunities program. High end of that cost is right around $70,000. Just want you to be aware that when we go to do this, of that $502,000, the permanent improvement balance presently, these three items here add up to $413,000 of that. So we're gonna run the permanent improvement down doing these. Just wanted to make sure I pointed that out to you. And if you have questions, feel free.
Yeah, just a quick question. When you say PI fund, is that just the monies generated by the PI levy, or does this include monies through the OSFC project as well?
There was initially, I want to say 1.1 million that was left from the OSFC project. Those monies were transferred into the maintenance and the permanent improvement fund last fall. I'm not exactly sure, it was prior to my arrival. We have spent permanent improvement funds about 180,000.
A little over 200,000 so far. What we transferred in was 750,000 into the PI, 250,000 into maintenance, and that was what was transferred. And then Ryan can speak to what we annually get back.
Yeah, right now, based on our current valuation, we're going to receive about $62,000 a year into the permanent improvement, about $31,000 a half, plus minus all the treasurer fees. I just want to make sure we rely heavily on that fund. It all kind of ties back into the 5-year forecast, because as we have expenditures that come up, maybe Chiller is down in the elementary right now, we use that as great relief so that we don't have to run those items through the general fund. It takes that burden off, which would obviously increase that deficit in 2017.
So you obviously can spend general fund money on PI projects and maintenance.
We sure
This
can.
money just helps relieve the general fund.
Absolutely, that's correct.
Almost in
That's
some
correct.
ways becomes a 2-for-1.
It does, it does.
And when you don't have this money, you have to rely on general fund, then that takes money away from salaries, benefits.
Well, it does, and it ties in, and I guess my concern on the treasurer side of things would be a lot of what-ifs are out there. I know I just gave you the 5-year forecast. One item that isn't in there that I'm hoping we can avoid, but this is on the federal level. Title monies, federal grant funds, because of the sequester we've probably begun to hear about on TV, we're looking at about an 8% reduction. If that isn't worked out through the summer, as we head towards the next fiscal year on the federal level, obviously those funds are going to be absorbed by the general fund. We don't want to have to cut those programs. We want to maintain those services that are provided. We're going to pick those up as well.
You know, obviously, you know, over the last couple of years, we've spent a lot of time in work sessions looking at, you know, items that we need to take care of. Lincoln was on that list, and I apologize, I didn't update all the Lincoln stuff on the paper I just gave you there, but those upgrades and improvements are, you know, around $190,000. Those are all encumbered at this point, and so we've hit that heavy. We've also done a lot of you know, this resealing of the parking lots. We have some computers that we purchased for the new educational options program. It's already encumbered. You know, so we're continually trying to cross things off the list of things that we've worked on for the last 2 years to identify as a board of items that need to be taken care of. And obviously, the athletic renovations is a big ticketed item. But we all want to make sure that we're aware of what's happened to that pot of money. It's being drained pretty fast as the improvements are being made.
Talk a little bit more about the bleachers, because I've been around long enough to know that they can be a tremendous liability if they're not taken care of. Far in excess of $328,000 if you have someone fall off or fall down or fall through.
We have pieced together, especially the home side bleachers. We've put back supports so that it closes the openings. We've done all that work ourselves. We've added safety measures as they come up. The issue with the visitors bleachers is, once again, it's the structural piece of it that's continually degrading. And if we don't address it now, we've looked at all options. We looked at coming in, propping up what's currently there, redoing a new base, and then putting it back down. But it's kind of, you know, once you start propping something up with a structure like that, to get it back to where it needs to be sound. And there isn't a bleacher company that will come in and stick any money into our current bleachers, because then they become liable for what's going on. So the improvements that we've had to make to our home and visitor bleachers for the last, you know, several years have been, we purchase the equipment, our maintenance folks go out and try to put a Band-Aid on what's there. So, you know, the bleacher section of it's about $138,000 to replace brand new visitor bleachers is what we have now. But it's also getting rid of the press boxes there. They're just, you know, and our home press box is obviously very nice and big enough to host, you know, 5 nights a year we use the visitors press box, and it's normally 2 coaches or 3 coaches. There's a way, some improvements that we can make to the home press box on the first floor at the far end to house the visitor coaches if we have to. It's a nice thing to have the visitor bleachers, but not at the expense of the safety of the bleachers. So.
And that's what the $328,000.
That's part of it, yeah. Yeah, there's asphalt's 100, a little over 100,000 for asphalt. The fencing, which 71-ish, which is the complete inside and outside of the track, and then the bleachers is the remaining. So there's 3 pieces of that. Now, what's already encumbered that we're already slated to do in June is the light replacement. So what we want to do is do this phased in, so we're not driving heavy equipment or destroying something that is already put in place. So we want to take out the current fence, or take out the existing asphalt, put the new lights in, pave the new asphalt, and then put the fencing in after the asphalt's in. So it has to be phased. The piece that remains is the track replacement, which we're working with some local people to write a Timken grant, because that's really a community project, and we're hoping to get funding for that and be able to show that we have a matching fund where we've expended this much money from the Board of Education and asking for an equal support for the track replacement.
So really a lot of this is just deferred maintenance.
It has. It's 30 years. That complex now is 30 years old. And a lot of effort went into that complex, obviously, by a lot of volunteer help. And it just can come to the point where we need to address some of the wear and tear.
And then you get very much more life out of the track.
Right.
As Band-Aids put on it.
And what this phase does is allows us in a couple of years to go and do the replacement of the track, which will include digging down and putting a new base in. What we've done is we've recoated the track, which is very expensive, but it doesn't address that foundation issue that we have, and that will always be there. We could put a brand new track over the top of what we have, but it's going to be structurally not sound, so we have to go to full extent. And that's probably a project within 2 years. So we just don't have the money to do it all now at this time. But we've had good conversations with the leadership out at Timken, and they view this project as a community project, which it is. Relay for Life, the police here in town use it. The YMCA runs programs out there through the summer. It's obviously, I mean, any night you go out there, you have community people walking and using the track. So Timken's been very good to our community and to our school district. The tennis courts out there, if you remember, was a matching grant from the Timken Foundation. I think the school board put up $75,000. Timken matched that, and then we had other donations to put that nice complex in. So we're very excited and feel that Timken will come through and help us with that potential grant application.
Thank you, and I appreciate Ryan's making sure we're going into everything we do with our eyes wide open.
As long as you know I'm going.
Okay, anything else? Roll call, please.
Dr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Sheeter?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes. And we'll go on to discussion items, Mr. Kimball.
Yes, the first item is the secondary handbook, and you'll notice very minor changes there, and I'll let Mr. Anderson talk about those, but one thing I do want to highlight is over the last 2 months we have been discussing changing graduation requirements. The current handbook that you have now does not recommend any current changes to the graduation requirement, still keeping it 24 credits. We do know that we will continually discuss this, provide dialogue, provide data for potential, to bring back up potentially during this next school year. But the timing is not right with the number of things going on, so that has been removed and tabled until a discussion at a later point. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Mr. Henderson to talk about the minor changes that are in the handbook.
Thank you, Mr. Kimball, members of the board. Just again, there are minor changes throughout the handbook, highlighting some things. Obviously, Dr. Burke becoming the principal next year. There may be some additional bell schedules added, knowing that Dr. Burke is working on middle school scheduling as we speak. There may be, we may be doing some stuff to the bell schedule in the student handbook and just having a separate informational sheet for parents to understand how the bell schedules are going to work. Moving down through there, obviously updating the district calendar for next year. As I scroll down here, as Ms. Farrer-Kimmel mentioned, made no changes to the graduation requirements, the number of credits. That stays the same as we've operated with this school year. And just highlighted that there's some minor changes with the font and the apparent appearance of the graduation requirements. Just capitalizing words were appropriate. Did some editing things in conjunction with our guidance staff at the secondary building. Updated the athletic eligibility policy and the eligibility, the clearinghouse policy, just to mirror our academic or athletic handbook. So they say the same thing, and it's all updated information, including the website that you can access and related to the NCAA clearinghouse. Moving down through there, just some adjustments to the administrator's role in the Renaissance program, down through the attendance piece, through discussion with our truancy officer who works with us in conjunction with the juvenile court, talking about what other school districts do in the county and in the area regarding unexcused incidents of tardiness at the school. We were recommending that we include 4 of those truancy and our over 10-day status, our medical status. And again, referencing a change that we made, instead of medical status, we're calling it the over 10-day status, so the parents understand what that means, meaning 10 incidents of absence, every absence following that 10th, and this is what we operated with this year. Every incident after that 10th day of absence has to be a verified absence, either medical, court, military-related, funeral, in order for that to be an excused absence. We've also clarified we would like to give 48 hours for a parent and student to submit an excuse for an absence, to submit that verified documentation for any absence. If a student comes back into school after an absence, we want the verified documentation at that time or within 48 hours. So we ask for consideration with that policy. No changes to any of the minor violations or the actual code of conduct. Just reiterating that the students in grades 9 through 12 will be able to have access to their personal technology throughout the school day. 6th through 8th grade students will not, unless directed by their teacher that they're going to use that technology for an academic purpose in the classroom. We also put a statement in here for students in the building to not post on social networking websites on school property during the school day from 7 a.m. to 3:05 p.m. to try to manage some issues with social networking sites in order to maintain order in the building.
And that'll be reflective of the acceptable use policy that the students signed yesterday.
That is
next year also.
Yes, that is reflective of that. Thank you. No changes and no changes beyond that in the rest of the handbook. Like I said, just minor changes for your consideration. Specifically, I asked your consideration for the 48-hour policy to bring in notes to verify absences, the social networking policy of mirroring our acceptable use policy, and then the for unexcused tardiness equaling 1 full day of unexcused absence in order to encourage and promote students getting to school on time. And those are the minor changes to the handbook for the upcoming school year. If there's any questions on that, I'm glad to answer them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll be safe to pass that next month then?
Yes,
Okay.
The company that publishes our student handbook is aware of our time frame that this will be adopted potentially in the June board meeting. We will have our handbooks in time for the start of school year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good, thanks.
The next item is 2 policies. One is the evaluation policy for administrators, and the other one's the teacher evaluation policy. And I'm passing around hard copies. I know you received those electronically, but I wanted you to get a hard copy. The first piece with the principal evaluation policy 1530. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's reflective of what the teacher evaluation policy is, and we have been working. There's been a nine-person committee made up of Mike Colin, Matt Henderson, myself, Marty Myers, Jason Nickler, Julie Reinschel, Todd Roll, Carla Schieffer, and Marty Schuster that served on what was called a teacher evaluation committee. They have been meeting since October. We've had 7 meetings and received feedback, and part of the evaluation piece is that it's done in consultation with teachers, and so what's in front of you tonight is a reflective of the work that group has done under policy 3220. And also in this is recommended forms to be used. Those forms include self-assessment, which is if you if you go about halfway through the packet, you'll see a side sheet that has a resources on it. Ohio Department of Education logo at the bottom. This is page 2. Flip the page. The first one is a self-assessment tool which teachers will fill out without their evaluators seeing that, point out their strengths and areas of needed growth. The second piece is a professional growth plan that will be developed between the evaluator and the teacher, and it's a conversation. There'll be 2 goals to that. One will be a student achievement goal, and then there'll also be a performance goal. So those 2 goals are developed at the beginning of the year with conversations with the evaluator. The next form, starting on page 5 through page 7, is something we hope that nobody will have to fill out. And this is an improvement plan, and these will be developed for those staff members that are rated ineffective the previous year. So that is an improvement plan, sampling, or form that we can use. Page 8 is pre-observation planning and lesson reflection resource guide. And this really is a resource for staff, or for teachers and administrators to focus on reflective questioning. The next pages 9 through page 13, 14, 15, 16, through page 16 is the actual performance rubric that the staff members will be made up of 50% of their evaluation. And then the page 17 and 18 is description of the classroom walkthroughs, and then page 19 is the actual walkthrough form that will be used in our district, and that'll be electronic, and it will be emailed to the staff member immediately following the walkthrough. Page, let's see here, page 20 is the informal, open-ended piece of the observation, informal observation. Page 21 is included with the post-conference planning, and then the final summative evaluation rating is the last page, page 22. As you can see, there's the 50% based on the standards, which you'll be rated either ineffective, developing, proficient, or accomplished, and then the other 50% will be based on student growth. We have staff members that fall into different categories depending on if they have a value added score or whether they have will be measured on SLO data. We do not have any vendor assessments at this point that count towards student growth, but you'll be calculating either below expected growth, or above expected growth, and then you'll have a final summative rating which will get reported to the Department of Education, and those categories are listed once again: ineffective, developing, proficient, or accomplished. All this will be done through the electronic ETPS, and in that all these forms will be available. We've already, prior to maybe 2 months ago or 3 months ago, maybe in January, had the principals go through and identify their rosters, verify their rosters, so that when we start the school year, we'll hit the ground running by having the staff members complete the self-assessment, sit down with your evaluators and do the professional growth plan, and then they'll be collecting data. There'll be a mid-year conference between the teacher and the evaluator to discuss progress on the data collection. There'll be a formal observation followed by a second formal observation, and then a post-conference where all this will be discussed and reviewed. So that's 3 days of training, right, Paul? And,
absolutely.
So, like I said, the teachers served as a valuable input with regards to putting the policy together. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know this is the first time that you're seeing it. I'm not asking for approval tonight. This is something you spend some time looking over, what we've crossed out, what we've added, and to the suggested Neola policy, which is our organization that develops board policy for us. So this has come a long ways over the last 6 months, and be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
You glad it's over?
Well, it's not over, the work is just beginning. So,
I mean, the task of putting this.
it's been good conversations, there's still a lot of unknown. You know, there's the whole, you know, the fear of students, how their performance impacts a teacher's evaluation still very nerve-wracking for a lot of our folks because of what they feel is a lot of things out of their control. Home life, how they come to school, whether they're prepared to learn, the absences, their motivation, their you know, those are all factors that we're dealing with regards to the fear of heading into this. But we keep reminding the staff members it's not based on proficiency, it's based on growth. So meet the kid where they are and grow them a year's worth of growth, and you'll be doing fine. So, like I said, it's evolving. There's still lots of work to be done to iron out the details of it, but I think we have a good foundation moving forward.
So is this for every teacher, every year?
This is for those staff members that provide instruction to our students. So let's say guidance counselors wouldn't necessarily be under this. This would be for, what they say, 50% of your day is instructing students.
Yes.
So,
Just by way of how much additional time do you think this is going to add to a principal?
they're really throwing different estimates out there. I've heard 6 hours per evaluation. I don't know if it quite doubles the workload of our administrators, but it probably comes close. You know, fortunately for us in our district, we've been doing the pre-conferences that was recommended through the work that we've been doing through Danielson's work over the last several years. So that's not anything new for us. The walkthroughs we've been doing, but we haven't necessarily been doing it as part of their evaluation. We haven't necessarily been providing feedback that we need to provide the teachers. We'll conduct the walkthroughs, but we'll keep the information in. And so there's going to be some extra time. There's no question with that.
There's some provision in the law about what happens to teachers that are rated ineffective multiple years.
Yeah, there's a required test that they'll eventually have to take, and we're still dealing with some of the issues. I want to say it affects bargaining type pieces that we'll have to deal with still. How do we deal with that ineffective teacher? What type of professional development will be required for us and we would want to work with those teachers that are rated ineffective. But then after so long, how is that handled? You know, we have to work with the whole piece about seniority and whether or not teachers are all grouped together with regards to seniority or whether they're broke out in 4 categories. Because that makes a difference when you're talking about potential rifts. If I'm going to potentially riff a teacher, seniority can't be used anymore except for those staff members that have similar evaluations.
So kind of like the old, all things being equal, seniority can have a role, but if someone's evaluated higher, that trumps seniority.
For example, if I have 5 staff members in a department and I have 4 staff members that are rated, let's say, developing, and I had 1 that was rated ineffective, even though that ineffective teacher may have more years of experience than the other 4 members, that person loses their job.
What does this do as far as contract status?
It should not impact that as far as
Like it continues, somebody's on it.
well, that's part of the negotiated agreement still. The terms of the contracts are not necessarily affected by this evaluation tool.
Okay, but if we have somebody that's on a continuing contract, ineffective, year after year after year, we can't.
There are pieces that we can provide enough evidence to move towards job action. Yes.
But
it'll be, it'll probably have to go to the level of, let's say, what the term that they use in legal, just cause, which is a high criteria to meet. This does not affect our probationary period that we have in our contract. 3 years, the first 3 years of the employee's time in our district is probationary period. Regardless of the evaluation, we can move away from that person without any recourse through the contracts.
So it sounds like it almost impacts the RIF process more than.
And understand that there's still bargaining that needs to be done with that department. So this will be hopefully in June adopted by the Board of Education. It will be placed into the contract, and then there'll be items that will need to be negotiated.
The effects of this.
The effects of that. A couple of key things is at what point, because you can't just take one shot of one data point with regards to student growth, and is that a valid piece? Well, what we're getting is that unions or associations and school boards are working together on saying after however many years, no, that's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, then the data becomes more valid because you have more than one data point. So that's a piece that we'll need to work out. We'll need to work out how RIF will be handled, how the rating of ineffective and potential termination of those employees are handled. So there's a few items, but the basis of it, I feel confident that we're in agreement of the basics that are in line with law, but yet have had opportunities for staff members to have say in the policy. So a couple things that they were big on is wanting to make sure that somebody that was employed by the Board of Education was doing the evaluations. And so that's reflected in there. So somebody we couldn't hire Joe Schmo off the street that doesn't know anything about our staff to come in and provide or do the evaluation. Some school districts are doing that, looking at hiring outside companies to come in and evaluate their teachers. So, but if there's any questions, I'd be happy to and once again, the administrative policy mirrors the 50% performance, 50% student growth, just like the teachers' evaluation does.
Okay, thank you. Any communications with the
We have one more piece.
We do?
Yeah, the old board policy C, item C,
sorry.
bylaw 165. This last month was discussed. It's back on discussion because we got an update from Neola so that there was actually a revision with 165.1 regular meeting and a correction under 165.2 special meetings. And basically what it has to deal with is when you reschedule a regular meeting, what you need to do with regards to communicating the agenda. And then the other piece with regards to special meetings, it's a correction on the time limit that you have to notify the media of a special meeting. So those things are reflective in your packet, and we'll ask for those to be potentially approved at the June board meeting.
Okay, is that it?
Yeah, it's getting warm in here.
It is warm. It's very warm.
It's
Warm
hotter
outside.
We were complaining about being cold things, so.
So is there any communications
What are
this
you doing? I'll
evening?
get there.
Announcements?
Just a reminder there that the awards banquet on Thursday night, graduation's on Sunday at 2 o'clock. We ask that you be in the high school office by 1:30. And then the annual staff recognition retirement dinner is scheduled for Wednesday, June 5th at 6 p.m. And if you have an RSVP for that, yeah, please do so.
All right, do we have a motion to recess to executive session for ORC section 121.22 for the purpose of purchase of property for public purposes or the sale of property at competitive, that should be bidding, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
And preparing for negotiations.
So moved. Yes.